I'll never forget the look on his face when he said those words. Marcus Kim stood there in his $15,000 suit, looking down at me like I was nothing more than a speck of dust on his Italian leather shoes. "You'll never touch my money again," he said, his voice dripping with contempt. "Sign the papers, take your pathetic settlement, and disappear from my life." I looked at him across the mahogany desk in his lawyer's office. This man I'd spent 5 years of my life with, and I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. "We'll see about that in court," I replied calmly, gathering my things. His laugh was sharp and bitter. "Court? You think you can win against me? I'm Marcus Kim, CEO of Quantum Technologies. I have the best lawyers money can buy. You're just me." He was right about that part. I was just Emma Carter, the girl who'd worked her way through community college while waitressing at night. The woman who'd put her own dreams on hold to support his ambitions. The wife who'd been there through every late night, every business failure, every moment of doubt before Quantum Technologies finally took off. But Marcus had forgotten something important. He'd forgotten who I really was before I became Mrs. Kim. And that would be his biggest mistake. 6 months earlier, our marriage had been falling apart. Marcus had changed after Quantum Technologies went public. The humble, ambitious man I'd fallen in love with had transformed into someone I barely recognized. He started working later, spending more time with his board members and investors than with me. When he was home, he was distant, constantly on his phone, treating our penthouse apartment like a hotel. Then came the business trips with his executive assistant, Claire. The lipstick on his collar that wasn't my shade. The perfume that lingered when he came home at 3 a.m., claiming he'd been at the office. I wasn't stupid. I knew what was happening. But I'd given 5 years of my life to this marriage, and I wasn't going to walk away without trying to fix it first. "We need to talk," I said one evening when he actually came home for dinner. "Not now, Emma. I have a conference call with Tokyo in an hour." "Marcus, when was the last time we actually talked? When was the last time you looked at me?" He sighed, the way someone sighs when dealing with an annoying inconvenience. "What do you want me to say? That I'm sorry I'm busy building an empire? That I'm sorry I'm successful? I want you to remember that I helped build that empire too. Or have you forgotten who kept us afloat when you were maxing out credit cards to fund your startup? Who believed in you when every investor turned you down? That was different. We were different people then." "No, Marcus. You're different now. You've forgotten where you came from. You've forgotten who stood by you." He stood up, his face cold. "I haven't forgotten anything. I remember every minute of struggling, of being poor, of being looked down on. And I swore I'd never go back to that. If you can't handle success, that's your problem, not mine." That night, I cried myself to sleep alone while Marcus worked in his home office. And I made a decision. If he wanted to throw away our marriage, I wouldn't stop him. But I also wouldn't let him rewrite history or forget my contributions. I started documenting everything. Every email, every text message, every financial document I could legally access. Because I knew Marcus Kim, and I knew that when he decided to end something, he did it completely and without mercy. I was right. 2 months later, he served me with divorce papers. No conversation, no attempt at counseling, just papers delivered by a courier while I was having lunch with my friend Sarah. The terms were insulting. He was offering me $200,000 and the car. A used Honda Civic, not even the Mercedes he'd bought me for our anniversary. In exchange, I was supposed to sign away any claim to Quantum Technologies, our properties, and the life we'd built together. È struttura narrativa drammatica com riviravolta e desfeccio impactanti. Continuando a historia, preciso disinvolver. A riacheo de emio que ella descobriu / preparue cena do tribunale carta que fez o juiz a reviravolto desfeccio satisfatorio. Preciso manter o ritmo dramatico e construir para o momento mko juiz lua carta. $200,000. Sarah gasped when I showed her the papers. "Emma, you were married for 5 years. You supported him when he had nothing." "He thinks I'm going to take it," I said quietly. He thinks I'm desperate enough or scared enough to just accept whatever he offers. Aren't you going to fight this? I smiled, and Sarah later told me it was a smile she'd never seen on my face before. Oh, I'm going to fight. But not the way he expects. That's how I ended up in his lawyer's office 3 months later, listening to Marcus tell me I'd never touch his money again. His lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman named Patricia Chen, slid a new set of papers across the table. We're being generous, Ms. Carter. Mr. Kim is willing to increase the settlement to $300,000 if you sign today. That's more than fair considering you have no legal claim to quantum technologies. No legal claim. I repeated. I was married to him for 5 years. In this state, that makes me entitled to half of everything acquired during our marriage. Patricia smiled condescendingly. Quantum Technologies was founded before your marriage. The company's value is not marital property. The company had nothing when we got married, I countered. No investors, no products, no revenue. Everything it became during our marriage. Marcus leaned forward. You had nothing to do with Quantum's success. You're not an engineer, you're not a businesswoman. You were just there. Just there, I repeated softly. Just there working 2 jobs so you could quit yours and focus on your startup. Just there when you needed someone to practice your pitch on. Just there when you were too stressed to think straight and needed someone to organize your thoughts. Just there. Sentimental nonsense, Patricia interrupted. None of that constitutes a legal claim to the company. You were a supportive spouse. That's what spouses do. It doesn't entitle you to millions of dollars. I stood up. Then I'll see you in court. Marcus laughed again, that same cruel laugh. Emma, don't be stupid. I'll bury you in legal fees. You can't afford to fight me. We'll see, I said and walked out. My lawyer, Robert Harrison, was a different breed from Patricia Chen. He worked out of a small office above a pizza shop, drove a 15-year-old Toyota, and charged reasonable rates. But he was smart, thorough, and he believed in my case. They're counting on you backing down, Robert said during our strategy session. Marcus Kim has unlimited resources. He can drag this out for years if he wants. I know. But I have something he doesn't know about. What's that? I pulled out a folder I'd been keeping hidden. Before Quantum Technologies took off, Marcus needed to attract investors. But he had a problem. He had no collateral, no assets, nothing to show he was a serious businessman. I'm listening. So I did something. I used my savings. $50,000 I'd inherited from my grandmother. And I put it into the company. But Marcus was worried that if we got divorced, I might try to claim the money back and complicate things with investors. So we made an agreement. Robert's eyes widened. Please tell me you have this agreement in writing. I smiled and pulled out a document. Better than that. We made it a formal shareholder agreement. On paper, I own 15% of Quantum Technologies. We were going to dissolve it once the company was stable, but we never got around to it. And then he got so successful he forgot it even existed. Robert stared at the document, then at me. Emma, do you know what 15% of Quantum Technologies is worth? According to the last valuation, about $180 million. And Marcus doesn't know you still have this. The paperwork was filed with the state, but it's under my maiden name, Emma Carter. After we got married, I went by Emma Kim. Marcus's lawyers did their due diligence under that name. They never found it. Robert started laughing. This is beautiful. This is absolutely beautiful. But why didn't you just show them this document and settle? Because, I said, Marcus needs to learn a lesson. He needs to understand that you can't treat people like they're disposable. That actions have consequences. And that the woman he thought was just there was actually a lot smarter than he gave her credit for. The court date arrived. Marcus showed up with Patricia and 2 other lawyers, all of them looking confident and prepared. They'd filed mountains of paperwork arguing that I deserved nothing more than the statutory minimum. I showed up with Robert and a single folder. The judge, an older Korean-American woman named Judge Park, reviewed the initial filings with a practiced eye. Mr. Kim, Ms. Carter, I've reviewed your case. Mr. Kim, your position is that Ms. Carter is entitled only to a modest settlement as she contributed nothing of value to your business success. Ms. Carter, your position is that you're entitled to half of all marital assets, including a portion of quantum technologies. Is that correct? We both confirmed. Mr. Kim, I see you've submitted extensive documentation about how quantum technologies was founded and built. Very impressive. Your lawyers have done thorough work. Marcus smiled. I could see him thinking he'd already won. Ms. Carter, Judge Park continued, do you have any evidence to support your claim? Yes, Your Honor. I'd like to submit a document for the court's review. I handed the shareholder agreement to the bailiff, who passed it to Judge Park. The courtroom was silent as she read. Her expression changed from professional interest to surprise to something that looked almost like amusement. Patricia Chen stood up. Your Honor, we've never seen this document before. We need time to review. Sit down, Ms. Chen, Judge Park said, still reading. You'll have your chance to speak. Marcus was whispering urgently to his lawyers, looking confused. He grabbed the document when Patricia got a copy, and I watched his face go pale as he read it. Your Honor, Patricia said, her voice strained. Even if this document is authentic, it's from 7 years ago. There's no indication that Ms. Carter maintained her shareholder status. Actually, Robert interrupted smoothly, the shareholder agreement clearly states that the shares are non-dilutable and can only be dissolved by mutual written consent or by sale. There was no mutual consent, and no sale occurred. The shares are still valid. Judge Park looked at Marcus. Mr. Kim, did you forget about this agreement? I watched Marcus struggle with what to say. He couldn't admit he'd forgotten. That would make him look incompetent. But he also couldn't claim he'd known about it, because then why hadn't his lawyers addressed it? That was a long time ago, Your Honor. The company was different then. But the agreement is still legally binding, isn't it? Your Honor, Patricia jumped in. Even if we accept this document's validity, it doesn't change the fundamental facts of the case. Ms. Carter is still only entitled to. Ms. Chen, Judge Park interrupted. If Ms. Carter owns 15% of quantum technologies through this shareholder agreement, that asset was acquired during the marriage through Ms. Carter's own investment. That makes it her separate property, not marital property subject to division. The implications hit everyone in the courtroom at once. If the 15% was mine before the marriage in the legal sense, then it wasn't subject to division. It was entirely mine. And if the other 85% of the company was marital property because it was built during our marriage, then I was entitled to half of that too. Robert stood up. Your Honor, to be clear, Ms. Carter is claiming her 15% shareholder interest as separate property, and she's also claiming half of the remaining 85% as marital property. That gives her a total claim of 57.5% of quantum technologies. Marcus shot to his feet. That's insane. She can't just. Sit down, Mr. Kim, Judge Park said sharply. Ms. Chen, do you have any legal grounds to dispute Ms. Carter's shareholder agreement? Patricia looked like she'd been hit by a truck. She shuffled through papers desperately. Your Honor, we'd need time to authenticate the document, to verify that it was properly filed too. The document has a state filing stamp, Judge Park observed. It appears to be properly notarized and registered. Unless you have evidence it's fraudulent, I'm inclined to accept it as authentic. Do you have such evidence? No, Your Honor, but. Then I'm going to ask everyone to approach the bench. We gathered around the judge's bench. Marcus, Patricia and her associates, Robert and me. Judge Park looked at Marcus with an expression that was part sympathy, part exasperation. Mr. Kim, she said quietly, I'm going to be frank with you. Your wife has you in a very difficult position. If we go forward with this trial, there's a very good chance she'll end up with majority ownership of your company. Do you understand what that means? Marcus's jaw was clenched so tight I thought his teeth might crack. Yes, Your Honor. I strongly suggest you and your lawyers work out a settlement with Ms. Carter. And I mean a real settlement, not the insulting offer you've made so far." Patricia pulled Marcus aside for a whispered conference. I could see the panic in his eyes, the realization that he'd miscalculated badly. But then he turned back to us, and his expression had hardened. "No, I'm not settling. This document is 7 years old. Who knows if it's even valid anymore? We're going to trial." Robert and I exchanged glances. We'd expected this. Marcus's pride wouldn't let him back down easily. "Very well," Judge Park said. "We'll reconvene in 1 week for—" "Your Honor," I said, "before we schedule a trial, there's one more document I'd like to submit." I handed her a letter. It was handwritten on Quantum Technologies' letterhead, dated 2 years ago. Judge Park began reading, and I saw her expression change. Her lips twitched, then twitched again. Then she made a sound that might have been a suppressed laugh. "What is this?" Patricia demanded. Judge Park cleared her throat, clearly trying to maintain her composure. "This is a letter from Mr. Kim to Ms. Carter, dated 2 years ago." She started reading aloud. "My dearest Emma, I want to thank you for everything you've sacrificed for me and for Quantum Technologies. I know I don't say it enough, but I couldn't have built this company without you. You believed in me when no one else did. You invested in me financially and emotionally when I had nothing to offer in return. Every success I've achieved is as much yours as mine. When we're old and gray, I want to look back and know that we built this empire together, that we're partners in every sense of the word. You're not just my wife. You're my business partner, my best friend, and the person who made all of this possible. I promise that I will never forget what you've done for me, and I will never let my success change how much I value and appreciate you. Forever yours, Marcus." The courtroom was silent. Judge Park was trying very hard not to smile. Marcus looked like he wanted the floor to open up and swallow him. "This letter was written 2 years ago, Mr. Kim," Judge Park said. "At a time when Quantum Technologies was already worth hundreds of millions of dollars. In it, you explicitly acknowledge Ms. Carter as your business partner and credit her with making your success possible. That was just... it was romantic. I didn't mean it literally." Judge Park held up her hand. "Mr. Kim, you're an intelligent man. You're the CEO of a major technology company. You write contracts and agreements for a living. Are you telling me you don't understand the implications of putting something like this in writing? It was a Valentine's Day card. It wasn't a legal document." "No, but it is evidence of your state of mind and your acknowledgement of your wife's contributions to your business," Judge Park said. She was definitely smiling now. "Mr. Kim, do you still stand by what you said in this letter?" Marcus opened his mouth, then closed it. If he said yes, he was admitting Emma was a business partner. If he said no, he was admitting he'd lied to his wife in writing. Either way, he lost. Your Honor, Judge Park actually laughed. "Mr. Kim, I've been on the bench for 20 years, and I have never seen someone undermine their own case quite so thoroughly. You wrote your wife a love letter explicitly acknowledging her as a business partner and crediting her with your success. And now you're trying to argue she contributed nothing and deserves nothing." Patricia looked like she wanted to disappear. The other lawyers were staring at Marcus with expressions of barely concealed horror. "Based on the evidence presented," Judge Park continued, "I'm prepared to rule that Ms. Carter has demonstrated sufficient grounds for her claims. Mr. Kim, I'm going to give you and your lawyers exactly 1 week to come back to me with a fair settlement offer. And when I say fair, I mean genuinely fair, not the joke you offered before. Do you understand?" "Yes, Your Honor," Marcus said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Good. Court is adjourned." As we left the courtroom, I could hear Patricia Chen reading Marcus the Riot Act in a hushed, furious voice. Robert was grinning from ear to ear. "That letter," he said. "Emma, that was genius. When did you know you'd need it?" "He wrote it during one of his guilty periods," I said. "After a business trip where I'm pretty sure he cheated on me. He was trying to make up for it with grand romantic gestures." I saved it because it was one of the last times he seemed like the man I married. I didn't realize how useful it would be until I started preparing for the divorce. The judge could barely keep a straight face. I know. Marcus always was a beautiful writer when he wanted to be. He just forgot that words have meaning. And consequences. 1 week later, we were back in settlement negotiations. The atmosphere was very different this time. Patricia was professional but subdued. Marcus looked defeated. The new offer. $50 million cash, the penthouse, 3 other properties, and full forgiveness of a loan Marcus had taken from marital funds to expand quantum technologies. Total value. Approximately $75 million. Your Honor, Robert said. While this is significantly better than the previous offer, we believe Ms. Carter is entitled to more based on her shareholder agreement and her contributions to. I'll take it, I interrupted. Everyone stared at me. Robert looked shocked. Emma, you could get more. You have them over a barrel. I'll take it, I repeated. On one condition. Judge Park raised an eyebrow. What condition? I looked at Marcus. I want a written apology. Not a legal document, not something drafted by lawyers. A real apology, in your own words, acknowledging what I contributed to your success and admitting that you treated me unfairly. And I want it read aloud in this courtroom. Marcus stared at me. For a moment I saw something in his eyes. Maybe regret, maybe just exhaustion. That's it. That's all you want. That's all I want. The money is nice, but I need to hear you acknowledge the truth. I need to know that you remember who I really am, who we really were before you let success change you. There was a long silence. Then Marcus pulled out a piece of paper and began to write. Took him 20 minutes. When he was done, he stood up and read. Emma, I'm sorry. You deserved better than how I treated you. You believed in me when I had nothing. You sacrificed your own dreams to help me achieve mine. You put your inheritance into my company when no one else would take the risk. You were there for every late night, every failure, every moment of doubt. And when I finally succeeded, I forgot all of that. I let money and power change me into someone you didn't recognize. Someone I don't recognize. You were never just there. You were essential. You were my partner, my foundation, my biggest supporter. I'm sorry for forgetting that. I'm sorry for making you feel small. I'm sorry for throwing away the best thing that ever happened to me. You deserved a better husband than I turned out to be. I hope someday you can forgive me, even though I don't deserve it. His voice broke on the last sentence. Judge Park was wiping her eyes. Even Patricia Chen looked moved. Thank you, I said quietly. I accept the settlement. 2 years later, I stood in front of my own company's new headquarters. Carter Consulting had grown faster than I'd ever imagined. Turned out, all those years of helping Marcus refine his business strategies had taught me more than I realized. And $75 million in startup capital didn't hurt either. My phone rang. It was an unknown number. Hello, Emma. It's Marcus. I was surprised to hear his voice. We hadn't spoken since the divorce was finalized. Marcus, how are you? I'm okay. I saw the article about Carter Consulting in Forbes. Congratulations. I always knew you were capable of great things. I was just too blind to see it when it mattered. Thank you. I wanted you to know that I'm in therapy now. Trying to figure out why I sabotaged the best relationship I ever had. Trying to become a better person. That's good, Marcus. I'm genuinely happy for you. Are you happy, Emma? I looked up at my building, thought about my team, about the clients we were helping, about the life I'd built for myself. Yes, I said. I really am. Good. That's all I wanted to know. Take care of yourself, Emma. You too, Marcus. I hung up and smiled. He'd told me I'd never touch his money again. He'd been wrong about that. But more importantly, he'd been wrong about who I was. I wasn't just the woman who stood behind a great man. I was a great woman in my own right. I just needed to be pushed hard enough to remember that. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying someone. It's becoming so successful that their opinion of you no longer matters. And sometimes, justice comes with a side of laughter. The sound of a judge trying not to laugh at a man who'd been undone by his own romantic words. I'd never forget the look on Marcus's face when Judge Park read that letter. The CEO who thought he could buy his way out of anything, brought low by a Valentine's Day card he'd written in a moment of genuine feeling. Life has a funny way of teaching us lessons. Marcus learned that words matter, that people matter, and that you can't build an empire by stepping on the person who helped you up. I learned that I was stronger than I thought. That I didn't need Marcus to be successful. That I'd never been just there at all. And both of us learned that sometimes, the people we underestimate turn out to be the strongest ones in the room.